Welcome. We've explored loops and even nested loops, which allow us to repeat tasks efficiently. But sometimes we need more control within those loops. Maybe we want to stop the loop at a certain point or want to skip certain iterations. That's where the break and continue statements come in. In this lesson, we'll see how break and continue can make our loops more flexible. Okay, so imagine yourself on a treasure hunt. Sometimes you want to stop searching entirely. That's like a break. And sometimes you want to skip certain parts without ending the entire search. That's like a continue. The break statement in a loop immediately stops the entire loop, even if the loop has not gotten to the endpoint. It is useful when a specific condition is met during the iteration. As you can see from the syntax of a break statement, you have the for loop that is performing the iteration. Then we have a condition, a conditional statement. If the condition is true, then we have a break statement embedded inside of that conditional statement. So if that condition is true, we break the loop. If the condition is not true, then we execute the code that is supposed to be executed in the loop, right? So once the break statement is executed, the loop stops entirely and no further iteration occurs. For example, let's say we want to count from 1 to 10. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Okay, so let's say we want to count from 1 to 10. We're going to have a for loop. Okay, so we're going to say for, all right, so we're going to say I in range. Okay, so we're going to have 1 up to 11 because we are counting to 10. Right, so we're going to print I. All right, now let's print. So you see that we have 1 to 10 printed in our console. Now, to see the break statement in action, let's say we want to break the loop once we get to 5. So we are going to come here and then we are going to say if I, which is the number that is coming from the range now. So we are going to say if I is equal to 5, if I equals 5. Okay, so now we are going to break the loop. But if I is not 5, that means we are going to print I. Okay, so let's run this now. So we see now the range function is going to generate from 1 to 10. So in the first iteration, I is 1. So we check this condition. Is I equal to 5? In the first time, I is 1. So I is not equal to 5. So this line was skipped and then 1 was printed. That also continued for 2, for 3, for 4. But at the point at which I is equal to 5, so we check this condition. Is I equal to 5? And at that time, I is 5. So we have 5 to be equal to 5, which is true. Okay, so the break statement will be executed. As soon as the break statement executes, the loop is going to stop entirely. So 5 will not be printed, okay? And then the rest of the items in the sequence will not be printed because the loop has stopped entirely. All right, let's look at another example. Let's say we want to find a number that is perfectly divisible by 7 and 11 in a sequence of number. Let's say in a range of 1 to 1000, okay? Let's say we want to find a number that is perfectly divisible by 7. So as soon as we find that number, we're going to break the loop. We don't find the number, then the loop is going to continue up until the end. So we're going to say for, okay, let's call this number. Let's say for number and let's say range, since we want to find from 1 to 1000, that means we are going to stop at 1001. So we have a colon. Now we're going to say if, okay, so we're going to say if number modulo 7, since we are looking for a number that is both divisible by 7 and 11. So for a number to be perfectly divisible by 7, that means the remainder of the division operation is going to be 0. For example, if a number is perfectly divisible by 2, let's say 4. 4 divided by 2 is going to be 2 and the remainder is going to be 0. Since the modulo operator always returns the remainder, so we are going to say if number modulo 7 equals 0, okay? So that means that number is perfectly divisible by 7 because the remainder is 0. So we are going to say if number modulo 7 equals 0 and number modulo 11 is also equals 0, okay? So that means that number is both divisible by 7 and 11, okay? Now, if we see that, we are going to print, okay, so we can say lucky, let's call it a lucky number. We're going to say lucky number found. All right, and then we are going to print the lucky number. This is supposed to be an F string so that we can embed a variable inside of it. So we're going to say number. All right, so you can see that PyCharm has automatically turned it to F string for me. Now, after finding the number, since we've gotten what we are looking for, there is no need of continuing up onto the end of the for loop, up onto the end of the iteration. So we can as well break the loop after finding our number. Okay, so we can print a statement. We can print a statement signifying that we are breaking the loop. We can say breaking the loop now, right? So if we run this now, the loop is going to continue. As you can see, we have lucky number found, which is 77. So the loop is going to start from 1 and then it's going to stop at 1000. But because we're having a break statement here, as soon as we find the number, so we are going to print this statement and then we are going to stop the loop. Okay. If we want to see the break statement in action, we can as well print all the number we are getting from the sequence. So let's print this now so you can see. In the first iteration, number is 1, but number is not divisible by 7 and it's not divisible by 11. So this condition was not true. That means the loop cannot be broken at that point. So we move on to the next item, which is 2. 2 is not divisible by 7 and not divisible by 11. So this condition is not true. That means this will not be broken. Okay, so it continues on and on like that. Okay, so at the point of 77, when the number is 77, 77 is divisible by 7 and also divisible by 11. So that means this condition is going to be true. Okay, so we have our statement printed, and then at that point, the loop is broken. So because of this break statement, the entire loop is going to end. That's why we don't have 78, 79 up onto 1000. So you can see how helpful the break statement is. It improves the efficiency of your code because there is no need of running codes that are not needed. We've gotten what we're looking for. There is no need of proceeding up onto the end of the iteration. All right, now we've seen how the break statement works. Now let's move on to the continue statement. The continue statement is a little different from the break statement. The break statement breaks the loop entirely, but the continue statement, it only skips the current iteration when a certain condition is true. Okay, so it doesn't stop the loop entirely. It only skips the current iteration when that condition is true. Okay, so let's say we want to count, from 1 to 5. So we can say for I in range, that's going to be counting from 1 to 5. That means we are going to stop at 6. Okay, so let's say we want to print I, right? So if we run this now, we're going to have 1 to 5 printed in the console. Okay, now using the continue keyword, let's say we don't want to print, 3 in this our iteration. So we can use the continue keyword to skip the iteration when the number is 3. So we can say if I equals 3. Okay, so if I is equal to 3, then we use the continue keyword. So with this condition now, whenever I is equal to 3, we are going to use continue to skip that iteration. So that means 3 will not be printed. So when it gets to this point and it encounters continue, the rest of the code in that iteration will be skipped, and then we move on to the next iteration. Let's see that in action. If you run that now, you see we have 1, 2, 4, and 5. The range function is going to generate from 1 to 5. So when I is equal to 1, so is I equal to 3, the condition is false. So this line will not be executed, then 1 will be printed. All right. Okay, so the next item in the sequence is going to be 2. Is 2 equal to 3? That is not true. That means this line will be skipped, and then we have 2 printed. Now the next item in the sequence is 3. Is I equal to 3? This is 3 equal to 3. So that means the condition is true. So now we are going to execute this line of code. So continue is going to skip the rest of the code in this iteration, and then it moves on to the next iteration. The next item is going to be 4. So we have 4, we have 5. This is different from break, because if it is break, now let's change this to break. If it is break, that means it's going to stop the iteration entirely. So we have only 1 or 2. But continue is only going to skip the current iteration. Okay, so that's the major difference between break and continue. To use that in a more practical example, let's say we want to print only the even numbers in a range of numbers. Let's say we want to print the even numbers between 1 to 20. So that means our range is going to stop at 21 because we want to stop at 20. So we want to print only the even number. So the condition is going to be if I modulo 2, because any even number should be perfectly divisible by 2. So we are going to say if I modulo 2 is not equal to 0. Okay, not equal to 0. All right. So if I modulo 2 is not equal to 0, that means that number is not an even number. And then we are going to continue. But if I modulo 2 is 0, that means that number is an even number. So this condition will not be true. And then we are going to print that number. Let's run this now and see what we have. So you can see now that we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. So this code effectively prints all the even numbers between 1 and 20. Okay, so if we change this now to equals, that means this condition will only be true when the number is even number. So that means this code now is going to print only odd numbers, because for even numbers, this condition is going to be true. And then this line of code will be executed, which is going to skip that current iteration and moves on to the next iteration. So the next number is not going to be even number. So if it is not even number, let's say 5. 5 is an odd number. So 5 divided by 2 is 2, but it's going to remain 1. So that is not going to be 0. That means this condition is not going to be true. Okay, so that means this 9 will be skipped, and then we have 5 printed. Okay, let's run this now and see what we have. So you can see we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. You can see all the odd numbers are printed between 1 and 20. So the break and continue statements give you more control over your loops. The key takeaway from this lesson is that the break statement stops the loop entirely, while the continue statement only stops the current iteration and then it moves on to the next iteration. It continues to the next iteration. In the next lesson, we are going to explore match case statements, a modern way to handle multiple conditional statements better. So for that, I will see you in the next lesson.